Hi, this will be a video on using CALaer in iOS with Swift. I have some notes on my GitHub for the class, and what I'm going to ask you to do as a challenge is to try and make these images. And these images are in the folder on GitHub, so you can see them there. So your goal is to make each one of these. I'm looking at them in Sketch right now, but we would actually create them in code, and I'll do an example in a minute just to get you started and help you out. So imagine that you want to draw this in code. So, really what you want to do is you want to end up with a view that represents the entire board, okay? Right? And that view is going to need to end up containing some shapes in here that represent each of the colored squares, right? Or, other elements. Inside of every view is an element called a layer. And this is really where the pixels for the view are drawn. So really the view is just drawing onto a layer. The view itself doesn't draw anything, okay? So the view owns a layer and everything gets drawn onto the layer, okay? Layers act like containers too. So you can put one layer inside another layer. They have a hierarchy. So one layer can have a child layer, right? And that layer can have another child layer. And any layer can have any number of children. So imagine that our view's default layer contains 64 child layers. So imagine we have a chessboard here and it's 8 by 8, right? So that's 64 squares. And so, essentially we'd have 64 layers, and each layer can be a different color, right? And there's a few ways you can draw this, but I'm going to suggest that you do this with layers, okay? This board is the same way, same as the first one, but I've used two images of wood. This is like a light colored wood and dark colored wood, so I'm using the fill here. The colors here you can do with the UI color, and set the background color for the layer to be the color here of the square. This one, I used a UI color, but I used the pattern image, right? So that's another option under UI color. So you can make a UI color that's a pattern image, and pattern image is just going to fill the area with the image, okay? This gradient right here was created with a CA gradient layer, and the gradient layer is, it's a subclass of CALaer that just draws a gradient. And so you can set a starting color and an ending color, okay? Imagine this as a series of layers stacked up one on top of the other. So we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 layers, right? And they all kind of change color as they go through. So imagine this as the start of designing your own UI elements. Imagine this is a clicker and someone can tap on this to add one, or tap on this to subtract one. Maybe they can add items to a shopping cart or something like that, right? And you can draw this with layers. Every layer is a rectangle, but if you give it the corner radius property, you can round the corners. So essentially, if the corner radius is half the width, then you get a circle, right? And you can give every layer has a border, so you could set the border here to draw the color, and it has a background property, so you can set the background color. So this circle here would be a layer, this would be a layer, and then this would be a layer, the big circle. The letter in here, or the numbers, right, and the plus sign and minus sign, these can be generated with a CA text layer, or if you like, you could just use a UI label. If you want to draw hardcore, you're going to use the CA text layer. The number here, though, since it changes, since it's not going to change in the example, you can add that later. But for just for thinking ahead, if you tapped on this, you'd want to add 1 to the number. You'd want the text to change. So it might actually be useful to have a UI label in here, because UI label is built probably off CA text layer, and it has a whole bunch of other features that let us play with the text and control the size of the text and all the features of the text, right? So imagine here we combined this last one with a gradient layer, and this last one right here, imagine like if you tap the button, it might draw a line around it or something, right? This could be a button used in an app somewhere. The shadow right here is also a property of the layer, so every layer can have a shadow. So you can find the shadow properties and assign it to the shapes. So essentially this could be built with 2 layers, one layer here with no fill, so it's transparent in the middle area here. And then you could give it a stroke that was white, maybe 10 pixels, and then the inner one is a layer with a corner radius, a fill color of red, and then the parent layer could have the shadow, right? Or you could put a shadow on each of these elements if you wanted to control them separately. Okay, so there I've outlined the challenges, and then you can try them on your own. And if you need some help, I'm going to do another video after this that will kind of follow up. Maybe we'll do this example here because this is a pretty easy one. Okay, so good luck and thanks for watching.